Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Feminine Ascendant Circle podcast. And today I'm very excited to have our special guest, Kim Kuhteubl. Kim, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. So glad to be here.
Thanks so much for being here. Guys, Kim is a wonderful feminine empowerment and creative coach, and I'm so excited to have her on the program today to talk about the future of feminine beings and creativity, as well as what's going on in the world right now and how do we move beyond all the things that are kind of coming up in the moment. So Kim, I would love if you shared a little bit more about what you do with our audience.
Yeah, so I work with creative women leaders on visibility. And in terms of visibility, I'm not just talking from the traditional sense of being seen as in, your press and your business strategy and asking for your value, which is a huge part of being visible, but also according to one of its underused definitions, which is to be available. So are you available for the life that you say that you want and that you envision in your head and heart? Feel in your heart. Is that something that you're truly available for? I find that women will want to claim a bigger or more expansive or more full or loving version of themselves, but then aren't prepared to receive it or aren't prepared to release what they need to in order to receive it. And that's part of what being available is really about. And that's how it connects to visibility.
I love that, Kim. Awesomely, I don't know if you've connected with her, but Samantha Nolan Smith, we were just talking about this very topic literally last week, and I think I want to connect you both. Side note.
I love it. Okay, I'm ready.
Mention that. Yeah, she would be a great person to connect you with as well. So, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I love what you're doing in the world. As we were talking about just before we clicked go on this podcast today, guys, I've been following Kim's work for years. When I first started my design business years ago, I was following you. You were doing creative work then. You're doing creative work and feminine empowerment work now. I'm so excited to have you here. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into the questions that we kind of have as a loose guideline. Talking about embodied feminine leadership. So I would love to know what your definition is. This is so keyed in for you right now. What do you believe embodied feminine leadership is, and what is it not? Right? Because we see a lot of definitions kind of going around, and I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So let's love to clear the air with our audience.
I think it's definitely something that is evolving, and I think it's something that we're creating together. So from my perspective, feminine leadership starts from a place of equality, like feminism, the word that shares its root, right? It really comes from that place of equality, and that women and men are equal, but we're powerfully different. So we need both masculine and feminine energy, and the paradigm that we're in now has been exclusively designed around the needs of men, right? Because those were the people who were earning. But we've seen a massive shift in the last 50 years, in the last 30 years, in the last 20 years that has really brought the needs of the feminine to the forefront. So from my perspective, feminine leadership involves intuition and a reliance on intuition. It involves holistic thinking. It involves heightened empathy. There are studies that talk about left brain, right brain, and how that's not really a true thing, how the brain needs both sides, which is kind of the point, actually, that language takes from both the left and the right to form words and to form sentences. Communication, takes both parts. But we have put so much emphasis on left brain function that we haven't allowed for the right brain, these sort of softer, high touch concepts to really influence the way that we lead. And that to me is really important, because feminine leadership often is more about responsiveness instead of hardcore, sales tactics. This whole culture of grind and hustle is super masculine, whereas feminine to me is about flow. And the physics of flow are infinitely more powerful than a grind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're in flow, you can move around a boulder. An ocean can just, move and part around a boulder. But if you are in grind and hustle mode, you will come smack up against that and tip your boat.
Yes. Oh my God, Kim, I love that you use that analogy too, because I teach a lot of nature analogies in my coaching. And one of the things I will tell people, and Indigenous folks will tell people this too, because they have all their own beliefs around this. Water is the most feminine element resource out there. So you talking about how water can kind of go around things, and also the way water, like just repetitive, can wear down a stone and make it soft. It's the same energy. And so I love using nature analogies. So thank you for sharing that.
And can I just say, water can take many forms.
Yes.
Water can be steam.
Mm-hmm.
Water can be ice. Water can be in flow. So there's many different forms to it. I think that's one of the most powerful things about it.
Yes, it's so adaptive.
It really is. It really is.
When you think about it, could be water in a bay, it could be a raging ocean, it could be a storm, it could be Mother Nature getting angry,
It's humidity. It's like the steam. It's like there's so many ways that it operates. Yep. So it really has if you want to be like water, you have the ability to be in almost any situation and be adaptive in that way.
Yes.
So it's interesting.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Like 1,000%. I also think that water also represents Mother Nature's relationship with my hair.
Me too.
Yay! I went curly the last year and a half, and I haven't looked back. It's great.
Yeah,
so much fun. And I also want to share too, we're talking about different forms of leadership, and like you just said, this hustle and grind is a very masculine form of leadership, and it's not bad, right? But we do need balance, and because it's been the model for so long, I personally feel that there's a lot of women who feel that they have to use that because that's what's been done, instead of embracing the natural characteristics of feminine leadership. We see this all the time, and I have to kind of gently correct even some of my close friends who maybe don't understand. I had a friend of mine the other day saying something about me stepping into my power because she doesn't, and I could always stand to step more into my power. I think we all could. But she's a little bit more on the masculine side of things. And I think she's projecting what her ideal of stepping into one's power looks like. She thinks it has to be masculine. Mm-hmm. And what I'm telling her is I do things a totally different way that she just doesn't see yet because she hasn't necessarily embraced it at that level. And so it's a beautiful correction point. I'm like, well, some people express power in different ways. And I think to be powerfully feminine looks different than to be powerfully masculine, like you just said.
And I think too, the problem is that, I come from a production background, which is a very masculine way to operate. And I often would joke that I was a little brother. I would play little brother to get things done.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that until the end of a production, when I would be there would be that moment, maybe 6-8 weeks later, where I returned.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wait a second, this is me. So who I've become to get things done. And when I first learned about the concept of feminine leadership, or even just this feminine versus masculine as it related to a human, I was really pissed off that I didn't get I get things done. Why can't I be, the organized control? That's feminine. What are you talking about? Right. Really mad. Forgetting, of course, that, and now as I understand it, the feminine is so much more powerful because, and again, different, right? But the fact of the matter is that, it's Mother Nature. Think about Mother Nature.
Yeah.
She will kick your ass, right? She will rip up the earth. She will do what it takes to get things done.
She is.
Right? There's no effing with Mother Nature. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing more powerful than that. And what you learn is that if there is a woman who is truly in her feminine power, she can get the masculine around her to do exactly what she needs to have done.
That's right.
And this is why there's the queen bee. That's why there's the queen ant on the hill. Like, those analogies are really, I think what's really interesting too about the queen bee is that if there's a lazy worker bee, she instructs the other bees and they march that little mofo outside and sting him to death. There's no like negotiation. There's no like, we're gonna, she takes care of it.
That is savage.
It is savage, and it's kind of nasty. I remember thinking when I first heard that story, I thought, oh, they're going to go out and negotiate. No, they sting him to death. They're like, you're out, right? Now, that's not how I want to operate. I have a son. I understand the value of the masculine. Yeah, we have, there's both. But this total discounting of the feminine, this need right now, especially the terror among a certain generation of men to suppress female power. And I don't believe power. I think power comes through you. Power is simply your supply, and power comes through you. So all you have to do is connect to your source to access your power. And what we've learned is in the culture is that we have to get power away from people, or we have to empower people. And when you empower people, what you're fundamentally doing is giving them their own, giving you your own. You don't need to do that. They have their own power. What you need to do is help them release whatever they believe. It's really about releasing and allowing and giving yourself permission simply to access your source and to be.
Yeah. And I love that, Kim. That's exactly what feminine empowerment is to me, is people getting their own power. It's like the Wizard of Oz in the 3 clicks.
Yep.
You always had it.
Yeah.
You always had it. It never went away. You just forgot. Ding, ding, ding. I'm just here, like poking you on the shoulder saying, this is here. This is how you get it back. Yeah. Boom. Okay. Yeah. I love what you're saying. And again, I freaking love all your nature references because I like pick the stuff apart and I freaking love it. And I totally agree. When I think about Mother Nature and just going back to that, she's going to be around way longer than any of us are. And she will just wipe us out. Like, Ellie, you don't care about climate change, or you do care about climate change. She doesn't give a rat's banana. She is going to undo us if we don't, like, it'll just be the end. That'll be that, Yeah, I mean, we have this option to interact in a symbiotic way, but instead we, in some ways act like parasites or a virus. And at some point it might get to the point where she says, okay, enough's enough, people. We're done. Yeah. So hopefully enough of us can figure that out and reverse it before it's too late.
I do. And we had this conversation briefly before you pressed play, but this idea that there's a great Buckminster Fuller quote that I'm going to butcher here, but the idea of it is that, you don't fight the system. You don't fight what is broken. That's actually the push against is part of the problem. That's part of the masculine, right? Pushing. We simply must create a new system. Yeah. And so we simply have to, en masse, start operating in a new way. The Berlin Wall was there until the people decided no and moved en masse to take it down. Yeah. Right? There were so many things that went to that. But fundamentally, it's about a consciousness shift. And you see this, you see this among young women, the Greta Thunberg, the Autumn Peltier, right? We're seeing it with Jacinda Ardern, who's in New Zealand. We're seeing these powerful examples of what the feminine looks like. These are clearly women. And this is why looking feminine, acting feminine, her with her breastfeeding and also making it, Jacinda, I'm speaking about in New Zealand, where now, they're paying, for the care of women who have been in abusive relationships. There's all kinds of things that are coming out of the nature of being feminine and what feminine leaders look like. And it is, this sort of old broken masculine paradigm, because the empowered masculine is quite different, but the broken masculine really does not even know how to handle this, because the place from which this is coming has nothing to do with simply dollar earning. And not to say that people who are leading from the feminine or that women leaders cannot be, and this comes to your creative, which you were right, we're looping into it, but from the creative place, that creatives cannot be abundant. That unfortunately is another broken paradigm, the starving artist. That was a setup.
Yeah.
Abundance and creativity come on the same channel. The fact is that a lot of creatives have a receiving problem. They are unable to receive because they've set their value according to the masculine paradigm, which does not value the feminine. So they have no context for what it is they do. Once we can align that, that's when the change can happen.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about this. And, it's clearly represented too in the way and how much different, if you think about the types of roles we have in our society and how much they tend to get paid, what are we noticing? The tendencies around the more masculine types of positions, the technology, the engineering, and all the science and math, which, there's plenty of women in these roles, but I'm saying the positions in themselves have you need a lot of masculine qualities to be able to execute these things well. Those things are making more money.
That's right.
They tend to be making more money. So if you're an artist, unless you are, like you said, very good at receiving and also, talented at the top of your game, it's going to be a different story around making money. And
also there's something about, we sell out when you make money as an artist, or there's many artists who like to be invisible. There's many artists who, and that's fine. That all works. But yes, because you could really argue that the unpaid work of women, obviously in the home, if we look at this traditional paradigm where men go out to, slay the beast and the woman stays at home, that has a value. We know that. And that has not been valued previously. So it's this conversation is happening with such rapidity thanks to the internet, because we're all in engagement with each other. We're in collaboration. This is something that traditionally in the feminine women excel at: the communication, the sharing, the wanting everybody to be, rising tide lifts all boats. And again, this masculine, they don't know what to do with it, which is why they're just trying to shut it down. Like, let's shut this down, let's shut that down. They don't have a framework for how can I make money, because that's the only thing. How can I make money without being an asshole, right? Yeah. And there are plenty of ways to do that. Yeah. But you have to be able to be adaptive. You have to be able to look at a different framework. There are just as many women who will fight me on this idea of what is feminine, don't even want to be associated with it, certain generation especially, but really nothing. I am equal to man. And I'm like, I did not say you were not equal to man. You are entirely equal to man, but you are different. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's equal. An orange and an apple are equal. They're just different.
This is true.
That's what I believe anyway, but I know I get into trouble for that, and that's just fine. But I need only look in a mirror to understand that I am different. You need only understand that women carry children to know that we are different. Yeah. And that is the power. That is the divine to me. That is what is divine, divinely intended, but also that is what is so powerful.
As you said in the beginning, powerfully different.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, you said that.
It really is.
And it's so true as well. A lot of starving artists, there's a lot of conversations and going on for people, and not just women, but like you said, creatives, which tend to be, the creativity is a feminine trait. It is a feminine trait. But a lot of creatives believe that making a lot of money makes you a bad person. And so there's unpacking that conversation that is innately feminine, because it's connected to so many creative people out there. Healing that wound, I think, is going to be really, really key in the coming years and what we have coming down the line. So I wanted to ask you, because we started to talk about feminine leadership moments, we can talk about that a little bit more. But I think the best thing that I want to kind of gear into now is, the challenges that we have, we were talking about this a little bit before we pressed play, and I loved where this is going. Talking about how does the feminine navigate or maybe circumnavigate the system to remind the world, because it already knows, to remind the world that it's of its place, of its rightful place. You know?
Yeah, I don't, obviously, I don't know the whole, if I did know the solution, but here's what I have noticed. Here's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
When women in particular speak up, when they use their voice, even for one person in their lives, that creates a ripple effect. I did a little bit of an angel investing boot camp a few years ago. And what I noticed in the room, that every woman there had something that was serving the greater good that they wanted to invest in, whether it was water or children or the environment or the way that air, pollution, whatever it is, they all had something that was in service to the whole. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of this conversation in my head about influence. Is it more of value to be a person, let's say, who has like 30 followers and they're people who really are engaged with you, and one of them goes on to be the next president of the United States, versus 1 million followers who follows you day to day and they love what you're doing, and they go and they don't have that kind of influence, but they go and make a trickle effect. Who can say the value, which is more valuable? Well, is the 1 million people more valuable, or are the 1 million people more valuable because they go out and there's more of them? Or is the one person who becomes the leader of the whole?
Right.
And, I noticed this. I have a book, and it came out a few years ago that's for interior designers. And what I noticed is that book, I started in one direction, but then the material was taking over, and I really believe that my creativity comes through me. It actually demanded I'm like, I joked that the dead ladies were talking to me, because I was constantly, I would be research one lady, I find this other dead lady, I find this other dead lady. And then I had to put their stories in the book. And then realized at the end, when people come in on the book channel to work with me, they are leaders. They are generally women who are invisible, who have something, an idea that is very different from what is currently here. Mm-hmm. And they are trying to give voice to it. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not they get out of their own way, trust me, I will wrestle that resistance to the ground. And I'm really excited to help them to do that, because I believe, I can't even tell you too, this relates to how many women artists I notice have burned their work. Like whenever I go to listen to, this famous woman artist, she burned this whole chapter of work. Or even a couple of friends over time who, one in particular, I remember going to her loft, friend of a friend, and it was filled with these gigantic canvases of florals that were amazing. And I was like, what's this? And she said, this is my late mother's work. Mother never showed the work. Daughter's never showing the work. It's all in this loft, waiting to be seen. And because, artist perfectionism, it's not good enough. It's not good enough for what? So the point is that, and I'm not saying you don't have standards. I'm not saying this is a much deeper conversation, but what I'm saying is, just even if one 11-year-old girl gets to see you, this is the question I ask. Would you want to share what you did with an 11-year-old girl? Well, yes, of course. I'd want her to be inspired to be. I'm like, So just letting yourself, most women, just even being themselves with permission will just create it's why, quite frankly, there's some statistic, and I haven't double checked it, but Barbara Stanny writes in her book that women couldn't have a checking account without a co-signer. As
70s.
Long ago, it's 70s, yeah,
maybe even 80s. It was
70 something, 71, 72, and I'm like, what the F, right? It's that's not, but if you look about it, that's not long ago.
That's really
so. Look how quickly we've been moving, and if we want to really make changes that benefit and support everybody, because quite frankly, even when we make these changes, it's going to support the farty old men who are gripping, right? Nobody wants to undo them. Those are people's dads and uncles, and we, people want them to be helped too, but not at the exclusion of everybody else, and not at the harm of the rest of us. How dare you think that you have more value? How dare you?
It's so true. There was something that someone was saying this the other day. I'm a follower of Bernie Sanders and also Marianne Williamson, big faves of both. And one of his advisors was saying if they implemented the tax proposals that Bernie would be proposing, which would tax the rich much more than they already are, Jeff Bezos would still be a multi-billionaire. Like, people are not going to be suffering. Right. Yeah. And that the idea of that happening is absolutely ludicrous. I love what you're saying, and I've reflected on this particular topic a lot lately, because even I love the personal development realm. I love it. And it's not perfect either at all.
Right. No. Yeah.
One thing I will tell you, my experience of this, well, who's to say what is powerful and what is enough people, enough whatever. It makes me so angry when I think about some of the things that I've witnessed. This, if you want to share a gift with the world and you're not doing it out of fear, okay, fair enough, you're hiding your gifts. But if you want to share your gift with one person, that's enough.
It's enough.
That is enough. There's a universe inside every single, the universe is everywhere, and there's a universe playing inside every single person. So one person, like you said, you don't know what they're going to go off and do. They can be like the next Jesus or something. Like, you don't know. And so the idea that you have to have a million and you could have 1 million followers making a little bit of a ripple effect, and that's great. Or you could have one follower that is just doing their own amazing stuff. And even if it's you leading your energy, like you're saying, is giving everyone out there permission to be themselves, to be awesome, to be more authentic, and that is innately more powerful. So I love that idea of people, if I'm in this space in my business, in my life, or some aspect of my life where maybe I'm taking a break, or what people would call a sabbatical or something, like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm leading me.
That's right.
I'm leading me right now. It's pretty awesome, and like, she's quacky. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. A coach I worked with, I said, so are you busy? She's like, oh, I'm busy on the inside, right? And I totally understood what she was doing, because she's not visible right now in the world, but she's doing the work on the inside. And I just thinking, you could be somebody's obscure creative reference. I often think there's a British artist called Eddie Reader. She's not obscure at all. But when she was with the band Fairground Attraction, this is going way, way back, and a friend of mine had it on cassette, and I got it on cassette, and I had never heard this band. I came to it much later. But I listened to that album. I still listen to that album over and over and over again. I think, gosh, like, if they only knew how much this has worked inside of my soul, and it's like years ago. This band is long disbanded. She's doing that. Like, who knows? But you don't know what your work is going to do for someone. You don't know when they're going to come upon it. I think about all the books I read from these mystical women who have been dead for like years. And then I come across their work, and I'm like, thank you for that gift. So they say that, and you have to be, I think, content with that at times, that we do have, our desires fulfilled the moment they are born, but you don't always get the chance to see that unfoldment, but really understand that if it's coming through you with that clarity and sincerity, that it will reach who it needs to, because why else would you have the idea? Why?
Because you're channeling it, because God is, or the divine, whatever you want to call it, source, is using you as a channel. I often say, I didn't write the book. The universe wrote the book. I held the pen.
Right.
And so to be that channel, it means you're speaking directly to God, and God and divinity and the universe knows exactly who that's meant to serve. Who are you to say? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a quote, and I'm going to butcher this too. I'm really good at remembering quotes. I'm really terrible at getting the details right. With me. Yeah. But the quote is something around, and it's like an age-old quote, something around like, something about you never know who's falling in love with your smile.
Oh, that's beautiful. Sounds like Rumi, but I don't know if it is. But
I don't know. I gotta look it up because I love that one. It's been so long, but it's. I feel like it's a similar sentiment where it's like, gosh, don't ever stop being you. Don't ever stop being the creative soul that you naturally are, sharing your gifts, because you never know who it's gonna serve, and you never know who's gonna fall in love with your work and your divinity and all of that. So I think that's incredibly beautiful. You touched upon a topic earlier that I wanted to unpack a little bit more. Maybe this is there's so much to talk about. A whole other episode too, and maybe that would be really fun to revisit. But there is one topic I wanted to talk about a little bit more, which is like talking about visibility, because this is your jam. And I really want to unpack this a little bit more as we wrap up. And that is for women who know that they have all these gifts and they know that they've maybe been holding back, or there's more that they want to share, more that they want to connect with in the world. And maybe they're starting to realize like, hey, there's some stuff that I've got to unblock or release in order for me to be able to show up powerfully in the world the way that I'm meant to. What can a feminine being in this state of mind, wanting to be sharing but feeling held back, what can she be doing or being to start transitioning into more of herself and sharing her gifts?
It's so individual. It really is individual. I'll say a couple things. Like, I think there's always the first things first is a baby step, right? Going within, like gut check, God check, you know, and then I say, if you're working with somebody, I say to my clients, gut check, God check, Kim check when they're working with someone, because you can't see your blind spots. So that's always helpful. That's the first thing. But if you can't do it, if you want to do it by yourself, I would say the baby steps, and really wrestling. It's so much fear. There's so much fear. There's also there's also going to be generally a visibility block. And that often comes in on some kind of emotional channel. So it might be working with a therapist. It might be working around that. But a lot of times the reasons we go invisible is related to some emotional event in our lives. So you really have to unpack that. You have to be willing to do the work. And if you can't consciously do the work, I go spiritual with a release mantra or a prayer. There's a Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, which a lot of people know and do. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, in whatever order. And sometimes just doing that ad nausea, even though you don't know why, helps. It really helps, because you might have a thought that, oh, why am I thinking about that person? And probably because you need to release them. Yeah. Or, oh, why am I doing this? I think too, in terms of practical steps, it's so hard for me because, again, I do come at it from the feminine perspective. So for me, when I'm working with clients, it's so intuitive. And a lot of the times I'm giving them either, you know, a book or a mantra or something, or a practice that seems like, well, what the hell am I going to do with that? Right? Because actually that's, it's very ephemeral. But actually will help you. One thing that I do say a lot is, you know, casting off the burden or giving it up to the uni. I call the universe the uni for short, right? But like, you know, you make a grid and you put all the things you're going to do on one side, and then on the other side, you put all the things you want the universe to handle for you. And then you really let go, right? And you let the universe do those things for you. And I've seen miraculous things happen for clients. So that's from a feminine practice. I feel like to give you the feminine practice, which seems like, again, a lot of the time when you're struggling between left and right, which is where a lot of my clients come in, they're such good left brain women, and they're smart, and they have creative gifts, but a lot of times they're like, I've done everything right. I'm doing it perfect. Right. And
yep.
And right. And it's like, I don't understand why I'm not getting the result that I want. And I'm like, because, you know, and I understand it because that was me too. Right. And then what it is, we really work to have them trust that it's not in their control, and that actually they're controlling it, and their way of being is what is actually disallowing the thing from them, what they want to come in. So, and again, the plan, the how, we know this, and you know this, the how is you think it's up to you. A lot of times people get a great strategy. They understand all the strategic steps they're supposed to do. They've studied models, they studied people. And I'm like, that's just fine. But that might have nothing to do with you, right? What has to do with you is this is about your growth. I believe too, we didn't talk about this, but creativity for me fundamentally is about your soul's evolution and growth. So you do take on a creative project and you learn, you work on something creative so your soul can grow. So it makes sense that you're going to come up against something a lot of times in that process that will challenge you and make you feel like awful, right? Or like I have to give up, or I suck, or whatever it is. And the work is continuing through that, which is why at the end of it, you're like, I don't want to show this to anybody. This sucks. You know, I know when I'm working on things, when I was writing my book, I felt like crazy, like a nut job. Like I'd be like, what the hell are you doing writing about this stuff? And then at the end, it feels fine. Also feels very separate from me. So you'll see this, you know, with writers or with people, they write something and they think, this is awful, I have to put it down. Or painters, I have to put it down. And then they come back 6 months and say, oh wait, you know, that didn't suck so bad. And so if they just stayed in the process with the process, they actually would have potentially produced the result, but now they are off and they have to start again. So just, you know, just sticking with it when it's uncomfortable. And then if you really feel like you're going to put down the mantle, get help. Don't do it alone. Like that is part of the creative process and the collaborative process. And finding somebody to trust, to share your heart with, it makes it so much easier. It just takes, you know, and I think, again, a lot of times people are like, my clients, especially me, I want to figure it out by myself. I'm smart, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's nothing to do with being smart. You just cannot see your own blind spots. You just can't.
You can't see everything, you know?
You cannot. No.
We're all in a 3D realm here, right? And this is something I often say, is that sometimes women unintentionally give themselves their own glass ceiling.
Oh, all the time.
All the time, because we're in creativity mode, and if we are engaging with it in a purely or almost purely masculine way, it stunts the rest of us, which, as you said, is infinitely powerful. And I want to quote you there, and actually I'm going to send this to you because I don't know if you realize you had a quote-worthy statement. Just
great.
So I'm just going to share with you really quick, just to reiterate, guys. Creativity is about your soul's evolution and growth. So true.
Thank you.
But what I love what you're seeing. I love the I always butcher this, Ho'onopono process. Casting off the burden. That powerful surrender is such a superpower of the feminine. That and I don't like the way people typically define the word surrender or humility. To me, humility is just realizing the God within yourself and the God that exists. And so being able to cast off that burden and powerfully surrender something is, to me, one of the most powerful things you can do, is saying, okay, I think I have an idea of what's going on. I think I have an idea of what I know I want. I understand that the universe is really aware, knows me quite well, knows all the other stuff that's going on right now. Maybe you should give it a try, figure it out for me. So when you say, there's certain things that I'm going to be responsible for, and there's a lot of stuff I'm just going to give up to the universe, it's so powerful to just give it away. So triggering. So powerful. So triggering.
It's
like my favorite part. Like, it's becoming my favorite part in my own life, is this fertile void space of, sometimes we go through all seasons, right? We have, the blossoming season, the season where things are in full throttle, the closing down, and then like the space where there's nothing going on the outside. Nothing's going on. The fertile void where so much is going on the inside has actually become one of my favorite processes, because it's like infinite potential, feminine mystery, not sure what's going on, who the hell knows. It's great. So So it's just become one of my favorite things. So, but I wanted to circle back on one of the things you said too about, yes, I believe that transformation is unique, person to person, woman to woman, feminine being to feminine being. And like you said, I think that awareness is important, and understanding what resonates and working with a mentor. And that's why I believe that's why you were called to share that too, is like, it's intuitive. It's different for every person.
Yeah.
And this is why, you know, when I started my journey years ago, I worked with a coach one-on-one. It was one of the best decisions I have ever made in my entire life. I got that one-on-one high touch support that you just don't get from a book. I mean, books are great. It's a great starting point. It's a great informational tool. I love online trainings. I love this. I love that. I've done all sorts of stuff, and I think they're a lot really, really great. But what mentoring really has the potential to offer people is an invitation to go deeper. So I love that you shared it, because it is different for everyone.
It really is. It really is.
So on that note, I wanted to invite people to check out Kim's work and opportunities to work with you. So would you care to share a little bit about your upcoming offerings? I know you have is it called a joy map?
Yes. So for listeners who are looking to get, because I also believe receiving is one of the big things that we talk about in the work that I do. And so when you're in receiving, you're on the love channel. Yes. So I have an offer of some joy maps, a little joy map exercise practice, which is fun. And you can go to joymapsplural.shop and download those for free if you'd like. And also we are launching a new program in January, and you will find out information about that. And
links in the verbiage, guys. Links.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can check out bykimk.com is my personal coaching site. And I'm also working, and mebydesign.com is where I work with interior designers if you happen to be an interior designer. But we're really working on, we're working on expanding out into, because I do find that designers, oftentimes for other things, painters, writers, there's a lot of overlap among creatives. It's not uncommon for creatives to have more than one discipline that they express themselves in, and that design is one container, but you might have had a container of writing, you might have had a container of film, you might have had a container. And so the conversation, I personally am needing a larger container for the conversation that I'm having around feminine leadership. So would love to see you over there. But the joy maps is one exercise that people really love to do, because they forget what makes them happy. They forget what they, and you have a spare moment and you're like, wait a second, I could do some receiving time here too. But then they're like, well, what do I do? Well, now you have a map. So
that is wonderful. It's very engaging. A lot of people, and I'm not trashing the freebies that people often give away. I mean, people have they all have their own value, seriously. I mean, my stuff, I've done everything from an ebook to like an online quiz, but what I love about what you're doing is that you're giving people an opportunity to go deeper, to engage with the work, to be self-responsible, because that is really where it begins. I think that's beautiful. So, and actually I wanted to go back to something really quickly, because I just realized we were talking earlier about you never know who your work is going to affect. Well, I just had this thought. I started following you, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. I started following you years ago when I was starting an interior design business. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago now.
Crazy. That's crazy.
And we are now just meeting. And so I just kind of was casually following you for years. And I was seeing some of your more recent stuff on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh my God, we're so overlapped. And now we finally meet.
Yes.
5, 6 years.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you said that, because you don't honestly, and I didn't know that this is the conversation I would be having. That I started off in production, and then it was design related, and so that made a natural business sort of move. But I remember early on, I was maybe a year and a half in, I was like, what the F is going on? God, this is nothing to do with anything that I've been doing. It feels really like a misuse of my gifts, but I kept going, and then it all circled around, and then I got it, and then I was like, oh, this is it. And then now I understand how it's an expansion, and how I became I got in my own way. And this is, I think, a lot of creatives, a lot of women, to the point of what's going to change this. So many women get in their own way, and not to blame them, because it has less to do with them than it does the way the culture has prepared us, the way the culture schools us. And that is an undoing. And once that is undone, everything looks like, why would I listen to you? I'm here empowered by source. So that is essential. And so I'm committed, again, you talking to your daughter, you talking to one woman, you talking to thousands of women. It really does not matter, as long as you are in alignment with who you truly know yourself to be.
That's so true. And we really do owe it to, the generations that are living now, but in the future generations. This programming that we've all experienced to one point or another, not our fault, totally our responsibility.
Yeah.
Totally our responsibility, both for ourselves and the lives that we are impacting every day. So
Great.
I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was super fun.
Thank
Guys,
you.
reminder, if you want to work with Kim, she is launching something come January.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear what that is.
Yes.
I know you may not have it completely prepared yet, but can I just ask a general question? Is that going to be like a one-on-one coaching opportunity, group coaching?
It's actually a group coaching. It's going to be a group coaching over 8 weeks. And we're going to go through a lot of the feminine principles as well, with one particular transformation in mind for whatever that is for you. And it's a launch program. It's, again, me taking content in a way that I've been using, but putting it in this format. And I'm always available for one-on-one coaching. I do, 6 month and 3 month if people are interested in that. I definitely do that as well. So you just inquire through the site. But that particular program I'm excited about because it's been in me for some time. And I, was stuck on a piece of it, thinking that was the plan, and then kind of realized, oh, wait a second, that's part of a larger something. So again, I have a coach because I do get in my own way. You can be even immersed in the training. You have to get somebody who is just that beyond you, just like beyond you, who's like sees it so differently that they move the needle. And so coaches are coached all the time, right? And it's important for me to do that. I can literally be coaching somebody and then go work with my coach and go, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing at another level, right? So we teach what we need to learn, but it is this space of feminine. I do feel like, and I love that we're having this conversation, because I do feel like this is the time. Like this, never before have so many women, been the head of their household visibly, been having a business that's their baby, been never before. So it's time. It is time. The time is now. And the time is now to end the conversation, because we could talk all day. Taking over. She's taking over. Just like Mother Nature, she is like, I've had it. Y'all get out of my way. Yeah. I'm doing it my way. Yeah. So I hear you. So namaste. We're talking on. Yes. Yes. Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Kim, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being on. And we will see you next time on the Feminine Ascendant Circle. Love you guys.